The sun had just dipped behind the horizon on Mars, casting long shadows across the red dust that stretched endlessly from Olympus Mons, the tallest volcano in the solar system. A quiet hum filled the underground research dome of Ares 6, the largest human outpost on Mars, where scientists worked late hours, adjusting sensors, scanning for radiation bursts, and listening for faint echoes from deep space. Dr. Elena Rios, the station's lead astrophysicist, sat alone in the comms room, sipping recycled coffee and adjusting the frequency bands of the long-range antenna system, when something unusual blinked across her screen, a repeated signal, not random static, but a structured pulse of soundless. Light waves modulated at prime intervals. Her fingers trembled as she ran the data again, refining the output. It was definitely not natural. The signal repeated 4 times, then stopped, then repeated again, but this time, the pulses formed shapes on the spectrographic display, symbols that resembled language, logic, and most terrifyingly purpose. She immediately activated the station-wide alert, summoning the full crew from labs, bunks, and maintenance pods. Commander Jacob Hart arrived first, his expression hard as steel when he saw the decoded stream. The translation system did its best, and while imperfect, it was clear enough. Prepare for assimilation. Resistance is inefficient. For a long moment, no one spoke. Outside, the wind gently kicked up Martian dust, hiding the stars beyond. Elena felt her throat tighten. This wasn't just a cosmic anomaly. It was a message. Someone or something was on its way, and they didn't come in peace. Hart turned sharply to the interplanetary secure line and sent a compressed emergency transmission to Earth. Back at Mission Control, hours later, the message triggered the highest planetary defense alert since the Cold War era. Across Earth, silent satellites activated protocols hidden under layers of bureaucracy and encryption. In orbit around Mars, cloaked defense drones powered up quietly, their AI cores scanning the empty skies. The invaders had not yet arrived, but humanity had not sat idle in its quest to explore the stars. Decades of secret defense initiatives, buried under the guise of space research, now came alive as systems across the Martian orbit synced into a grid known only to a few high-ranking officials. Project Citadel. It was built for this moment, for the day when the unknown turned hostile. Back at Ares 6, the crew stared out from the observation dome as tiny silver points began to shimmer far beyond Phobos, moving slowly but deliberately, far too coordinated to be natural. Not comets, not asteroids, ships. Elena's voice cracked as she whispered, "They're already here." Commander Hart gave the order to seal the outpost, while satellites tracked the intruder's approach vector straight from the Keeper Belt, as if they had been watching for a long time and only now decided to act. Panic surged across the comms network, but on the Martian surface, the fear was cold and quiet, like the dust drifting across the landing pads. A countdown had begun. Unknown ships were decelerating at impossible rates, matching orbital speeds, their dark hulls absorbing radar and light, suggesting advanced stealth technology beyond anything Earth had ever seen. But humans, as history had always proven, were at their best when pushed to the edge. In the sublevels of the Ares 6 dome, robotic factories pivoted from science tool manufacturing to weapon systems. Engineers activated dormant railgun turrets disguised as geological probes. Automated missile platforms disguised in Martian terrain booted up targeting systems. The crew of Ares 6, barely 23 men and women, were no longer just scientists. They were now Earth's first line of defense. But as the ships crept closer, a new problem emerged. A low-frequency interference began disrupting Mars' orbital satellites. Vitals spiked. Artificial gravity flickered in and out. Data feeds scrambled and then went dead. The enemy wasn't just approaching, they were reaching inside human systems, learning, testing, maybe even laughing. And yet, unknown to the Cathar Dominion, who had crushed dozens of civilizations before, Earth had hidden one last surprise. Lurking beyond the asteroid belt was Ghost Fleet Alpha, a secret fleet of stealth-capable warships, AI-operated and ready to strike. They had never seen battle, but their captains had trained for a decade in simulators designed to mimic alien tactics. Earth was not going to wait for its skies to darken. As the first enemy vessel entered Mars orbit, Ares 6's defense systems locked on. The humans did not send a welcome. They fired. A railgun slug, traveling at hypersonic speed, ripped into the Cathar scout, tearing its hull open in a brilliant flash. The enemy reeled. The signal changed again. Resistance detected. Efficiency compromised. Elena stared at the screen as the signal grew louder, closer, more aggressive. But deep inside, she felt something else rise: pride, determination, resolve. They had not even made it to Earth, and already the fight had begun. Humanity wasn't going to wait to be conquered. Not this time. The Martian sky was darker than usual, not just from the fading light but from the tension rising across every inch of Ares 6. Commander Jacob Hart stood silently near the command console, watching the orbital feed flash with activity. Unidentified enemy ships had entered Mars orbit. Above the red surface, high-speed cameras tracked the shadowy figures of alien vessels, slowly moving into formation. Their sleek black hulls reflected nothing, absorbing radar, light, even sound. They drifted like predators in a quiet sea. Inside the outpost, every team member moved with controlled urgency. Dr. Elena Rios worked alongside the AI interface, fine-tuning targeting data and adjusting the signal jammers. The enemy had already begun to interfere with their satellites, sending pulses of energy that caused short bursts of static and digital echoes in their systems. Mars Defense Grid Project Citadel was humanity's hidden sword, and tonight it would be unsheathed. Commander Hart gave the command, and the artificial intelligence buried within the planetary defense program activated Phase 1. Across the dusty plains near Olympus Mons, massive railgun turrets rose silently from beneath the ground, camouflaged under layers of red dust and rock. The Cathar Dominion, confident in their ancient technology, had not detected these hidden weapons. They assumed Mars was unarmed, an easy stepping stone before Earth's conquest. That was their first mistake. The railguns locked on. With a sudden burst of energy, 3 projectiles were launched at near-orbital speeds. One struck the nearest Cathar scout ship directly through its midsection, tearing it in half before it could deploy countermeasures. The second sliced through a winged interceptor that had just begun to scan the Martian atmosphere. The third missed its target, but forced the enemy fleet to break formation. Chaos followed. Cathar ships scrambled, turning toward the Martian surface, but they had no experience with human combat strategies. Their enemies in the past had surrendered or failed to defend themselves. But humans were different. They didn't wait. They struck first. While the Cathar tried to understand what was happening, Phase 2 of Project Citadel activated. Dozens of drone swarms, the size of large birds but armed with high-precision EMP bursts, launched from hidden canisters across the Martian surface. These drones rose like a cloud, dispersing quickly and attacking weak points on the Cathar hulls. Sparks burst in the sky as alien ships began to lose power and control. A heavy cruiser lost altitude and crashed into a Martian ridge, sending shockwaves across the landscape. Commander Hart watched from the command center, eyes sharp and voice calm, giving orders to reroute power, switch target priorities, and deploy the remaining automated weapons. Dr. Elena monitored the alien signals. They were trying to hack into the planetary grid, but the firewalls held. Each attempt only exposed more about their systems, giving humans an edge with every passing second. On board the damaged Cathar vessels, alien commanders barked in their own harsh language, unable to understand how a primitive world had turned into a battlefield so quickly. Back in Earth orbit, the Terran Unified Command observed everything through encrypted feeds. Admiral Lynn Takeda, from her position aboard the flagship TSV Valor, reviewed the data and initiated Operation Firewall, an all-solar system defense initiative aimed at containing the threat before it could ever reach Earth. Ships began to launch from lunar bases and asteroid colonies. Humanity was moving fast and without hesitation. On Mars, the fight escalated. The Cathar began to fire back, launching beams of concentrated energy that melted rock and sand into glass. One beam hit a Martian drone hub, reducing it to a crater in seconds. Another beam scorched a section of the outer dome of Ares 6, cracking the shield and causing the crew to evacuate that level. But humans didn't fall back. They adapted. Mobile turrets repositioned. Drones refocused their attacks. Elena noticed something then: patterns in the Cathar response. They didn't understand terrain. They fought in 3 dimensions, expecting open space, not ground-based warfare. Humans used the planet itself as a weapon. The Cathar were powerful, yes, but they were predictable. She relayed the data to Hart, who immediately approved a terrain trap strategy. Along a narrow valley near the equator, the team baited the largest Cathar ship using a series of false signals. The alien craft descended, searching for the source, unaware that seismic charges had been buried beneath the surface. The moment the ship hovered above the canyon, the charges detonated in sequence. The ground beneath the alien vessel collapsed, pulling it into the chasm and slamming it against the rock walls as automated mortars struck from above. The ship exploded, sending a shockwave across the Martian desert. A cheer erupted inside Ares 6, but Hart reminded them it wasn't over. More ships remained in orbit, and they would retaliate. The Cathar regrouped, this time launching smaller drones of their own, sleek and glowing with blue energy. These alien scouts pierced the sky, trying to find the source of the attacks. They locked onto the largest turret near the base of Olympus Mons and destroyed it with pinpoint strikes. For a moment, it seemed like the tide might turn. But that's when Earth's hidden ace revealed itself. Rising from the shadows of the Martian moon Phobos, a human stealth ship, TSV Warden, uncloaked and launched an assault on the remaining Cathar ships from above. Equipped with next-generation rail cannons and adaptive camouflage, the Warden had never been used in open space until now. It darted through debris fields, tearing holes into the enemy fleet. The Cathar tried to respond, but their systems were still reeling from the earlier ambush. The Warden disabled 2 cruisers, forcing them to crash into each other in low orbit. Debris rained down in fiery streaks, visible even from the Martian surface. Dr. Elena stared up in awe, then turned back to her console as a new alert flashed interference in the communications array. She rushed to a terminal and gasped. The Cathar weren't just trying to fight, they were trying to send a message. A pulse transmission, aimed not at Mars, but outward, into deep space. A call for reinforcements. A warning. A threat? She quickly scrambled the array, but part of the signal escaped. Somewhere, in the dark regions beyond Pluto, someone or something may have received it. Hart ordered a full system lockdown. They had won the first battle, but they might have started something far bigger. Outside, the Martian winds began to rise, blowing red dust over broken alien metal and shattered drone parts. The night grew colder. Inside the outpost, the team regrouped, tending to injuries, repairing systems, and preparing for what came next. Hart looked at the tactical screen, showing the wreckage orbiting Mars. "They thought this was the edge of the war," he said quietly, more to himself than anyone else. But this was just the beginning. Elena glanced at the stars, still wondering who else might have been listening. The Cathar had come expecting to crush Earth before it could respond. But humanity had answered with fire, metal, and willpower they had never faced before. The invaders had survived their first contact with humans, and they would regret it. Far beyond Mars, hidden deep within the cold and silent shadows of the asteroid belt, a massive structure floated in darkness, invisible to all known sensors, shielded by layers of magnetic interference and rock debris. This was the Graveyard, humanity's most secret military base, carved inside a hollowed asteroid and known only to a few high-ranking officers. Inside, silent machines hummed, systems blinked softly, and a fleet unlike any ever built waited in perfect stillness. The Ghost Fleet, officially designated Fleet Zero, had been designed in total secrecy over 2 decades, created not to defend Earth, but to strike first if the stars ever turned hostile. Every ship in this fleet was dark-colored, sharp-edged, and loaded with experimental weapons, AI-assisted navigation, and adaptive cloaking that bent radar and heat signatures. Until now, they had remained in deep stasis, without a mission, without a purpose. That changed the moment the Martian outpost sent its urgent call for help. On the command deck of the fleet's lead ship, the TSV Vengeance, Captain Elias Ward stood tall in his dark uniform, jaw tense as he stared at the incoming report. Mars had been attacked. The Cathar Dominion had arrived, and though the Martian defenses had pushed them back, the aliens had sent a distress call to the edge of the solar system. That meant more were coming. Elias knew what had to be done. He gave a single nod, and the command to awaken the fleet echoed through the asteroid walls like thunder. One by one, the warships came to life. Lights snapped on. Engines whispered to full power. Hundreds of drones activated, hovering around the vessels like birds circling a predator. Across the command bridge, his crew handpicked from the best across Earth, Luna and Titan prepared for launch. The fleet had trained for war in deep space, simulated battles against unknown enemies, but none of them had imagined they would be the first to confront an actual invasion from beyond the stars. Still, they didn't hesitate. Orders were clear: intercept and eliminate any alien reinforcements before they could reach Mars or Earth. Outside the asteroid field, the emptiness of space stretched endlessly, but the fleet moved through it like ghosts, silent, undetectable, precise. With their stealth systems active, not even Earth's most powerful telescopes could track them. The journey toward Mars took only hours with their new gravity drives, and during that time, Captain Ward studied every fragment of the Cathar data recovered by Ares 6. The enemy's technology was strong but lacked creativity. Their ships were massive and terrifying, but rigid, built for domination, not adaptation. That was their weakness. Ward knew humans were different. Humans changed, evolved, and found ways to win, even when outgunned. That was how Earth had survived its own wars, disasters, and near-extinction events. As the Ghost Fleet closed in on Mars orbit, Ward gave the order. The TSV Revenant and TSV Eclipse broke formation and descended toward the enemy, weapon systems locking on. Without warning, the humans struck. Railgun slugs tore through space, hitting the Cathar vessels before they could react. Explosions lit up the Martian night sky. The Cathar had been ambushed again, but this time from above. One alien ship tried to escape, spinning wildly toward Deimos, but the Revenant was faster, firing a spread of smart missiles that turned in mid-space and struck true, destroying the target in a blinding flash. The second ship fought back, launching a swarm of defense drones, but the Eclipse used a gravity well cannon, one of the Ghost Fleet's most dangerous weapons, to tear them apart in a silent wave. Back on Earth, Admiral Lynn Takeda received the feed and allowed herself a rare smile. The Ghost Fleet had been real. It had worked. Humanity had a fist of iron hidden behind its open hand. But even as Mars was secured, new data arrived from the outer system. The remnants of the Cathar transmission had reached something big. A new signal pulsed back, faint but rising. Something was coming from beyond Neptune, moving fast. Ward studied the pulse, analyzing its rhythm and structure. It was different from the first Cathar message. This was not a request for help. It was a threat, a countdown. He called his science officer, Dr. Mira Chen, who studied the transmission and discovered a horrifying truth. The Cathar had not sent a distress signal to their homeworld, they had triggered a beacon, alerting a massive fleet buried in deep space. A dormant force, ancient and powerful, was awakening. The Cathar had always led their attacks with small advance forces, softening targets before the real army arrived. Mars had only faced a scout team. The main fleet was still coming. Ward realized they had little time. He needed to stop the reinforcements before they crossed into Mars orbit. But the enemy fleet would not pass through the asteroid belt the way the scouts had. They were coming from a hidden path, a dark corridor near Pluto, shielded by radiation and cosmic debris, something humans had never explored fully. He made a bold decision: send part of the Ghost Fleet into deep space faster than ever attempted to intercept the enemy at the edge of the solar system. The plan was risky. Communications would be cut. Fuel would be tight. The ships might not return, but waiting meant death. He split the fleet, sending the TSV Nightshade, Oblivion, and Riftwalker with the best pilots and AI co-commanders. Their goal: locate the alien vanguard and destroy it before it could reach Mars. As they departed into the cold, dark, Ward returned his focus to Mars, coordinating with Ares 6 and preparing for possible orbital battle. Dr. Chen stayed up for hours, scanning deep space, looking for signs of movement, until finally she saw a cluster of heat signatures near Pluto, larger than any recorded object besides gas giants, moving toward the sun at terrifying speed. Ward ordered full battle readiness. Humanity had drawn blood, and now the galaxy was answering. But the Ghost Fleet was not afraid. They were the shadow in the dark, the sword behind the silence. They had risen not to defend a planet, but to ensure no enemy would ever reach it. And now their true test had begun. Above Mars, the stars looked calm, silent, and far away, but everyone aboard RS-6 knew something deadly was coming closer with every passing second. And this time, it wasn't a scout fleet, it was the real Cathar War Armada. In the command center, Commander Jacob Hart stared at the growing number of red blips on the holographic display. The warning from Captain Elias Ward and the Ghost Fleet had been clear. The enemy was massive, faster than expected, and was now entering Martian space. Hart's voice was steady, but his eyes were sharp as he gave orders to prepare all planetary defenses, reroute energy to orbital railguns, and ready the AI drone network. Dr. Elena Rios worked beside him, her fingers flying over the console, decoding incoming signals and tracking energy spikes from the dark zone near Mars' outer orbit. Suddenly, alarms blared. The Cathar ships had uncloaked, dozens of them forming a crescent above Mars, moving like a swarm of metal beasts, their hulls glowing with eerie blue lights. Each ship was nearly the size of a skyscraper, bristling with weapons, and behind them, a larger one appeared, their command vessel, a massive dreadnought that dwarfed the Martian moon Phobos. It was covered in thick armor and radiated energy strong enough to block all satellite signals. The Martian defense grid locked onto them, and the first shots were fired. Railgun slugs streaked through the void, followed by swarms of drones rising from hidden silos across the Martian surface. The Cathar responded instantly, unleashing waves of plasma bolts that lit the sky with fire. A human drone cluster was vaporized in seconds, and 2 orbital turrets were torn apart by focused laser beams. Ares 6 shook from the shockwaves, but Hart kept his crew focused, shouting orders, directing the battlefield like a conductor of war. In orbit, the Ghost Fleet rejoined the fight. Ships like the TSV Vengeance, Revenant, and Eclipse moved between enemy vessels with deadly speed, hitting weak spots with railguns and fusion torpedoes. The Cathar, though more in number, were not used to such rapid strikes. Their formations began to falter, and human pilots took advantage. The Eclipse swooped below a Cathar destroyer and launched an EMP burst, disabling its engines and causing it to drift helplessly into its own formation, causing a chain reaction of collisions. Meanwhile, the Revenant targeted the alien dreadnought's escort ships, drawing fire away from Mars' surface and giving Ares 6 a brief window to activate the next phase of Defense Project Red Halo. Elena triggered the system, and from the upper atmosphere, a ring of satellites launched beams of concentrated solar energy at the Cathar ships, slicing through armor and melting drone carriers. The sky above Mars looked like a storm of fire and light. One alien cruiser exploded directly above Olympus Mons, its shattered remains raining down across the Martian plains. But the Cathar were not done. From their dreadnought, they deployed a new type of war drone, sleek, fast, and shaped like living creatures. These AI-controlled hunters slipped through defenses, diving into Ares 6's upper domes, cutting power cables, and attacking infrastructure. Inside the base, sirens howled as crew members defended against sudden breaches. Commander Hart and his team grabbed weapons, fighting side by side with security units in the dark corridors of the outpost. One of the alien drones pinned a technician, its glowing limb slashing at her, but Elena pulled her sidearm and shot it through the sensor core, saving the engineer. Meanwhile, in orbit, Captain Ward faced the dreadnought. The TSV Vengeance moved in close, avoiding beams and missiles. Looking for a weak point, Mira Chen, on the ship's science deck, found a thermal vent system hidden behind the Cathar's main engine cluster. If they could strike it, the resulting heat overload would cripple the ship. Ward nodded grimly and ordered a high-speed dive toward the vent, knowing they'd have only one chance. As they approached, 3 Cathar interceptors chased them, trying to block the path. The Eclipse intercepted, taking heavy damage but clearing the way. With shields almost gone, the Vengeance fired a trio of plasma spears directly into the vent system. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the dreadnought shuddered, blue energy bursting from cracks in its hull, and its rear engines exploded. The shockwave knocked back the human fleet, but the Cathar flagship was falling, fire trailing from its ruined hull as it began descending toward the Martian surface. On the ground, Hart watched it fall. He knew if the massive ship hit the surface, the impact would destroy Ares 6 and everything within 100 kilometers. With no time to lose, he contacted Ward and Elena. Using the last of their orbital drones, they would redirect the falling wreck just enough to crash it into the canyon beyond the base. Elena fed coordinates into the targeting system, and drones launched in formation, pushing and guiding the massive wreck with all the force they had. Slowly, painfully, the course shifted, and the Cathar dreadnought missed the base by mere kilometers, crashing into the Valles Marineris with a thunderous explosion that split the ground open. Dust and fire filled the air. The battle still wasn't over. Smaller Cathar ships continued to fight, and even though many were damaged, they fought with desperation. It was clear now they had no way to retreat. Their backup was destroyed. They were trapped. But even cornered, they were dangerous. One Cathar frigate rammed a Martian satellite array, cutting off communications for several minutes. Another tried to collide with the Revenant, but was destroyed in a last-second blast from the Nightshade, which had returned from deep space after confirming that the enemy reinforcement fleet was now delayed, possibly even scared. The tide was turning. Hart ordered all units to press the attack. Orbital railguns fired non-stop. Human pilots, though exhausted, flew with precision. Slowly, one by one, the remaining Cathar ships were brought down. The last one tried to escape toward Deimos, but its engines failed, and it drifted into the void, powerless. Silence fell. The battle was over. Above Mars, wreckage floated like shattered bones. Below, the Martian surface was scarred with burn marks, craters, and debris. But Ares 6 still stood. Humanity had not only survived, it had won. At a terrible cost, yes, but victory was theirs. Inside the base, survivors gathered in silence, some crying, others cheering softly, their faces lit by the faint orange sky. Hart leaned against the wall, tired but proud. Elena looked at the stars, wondering if this would be the last time they'd be safe. Captain Ward opened a private channel to Earth Command. "Martian space is secure," he said. "The enemy has been defeated." But even as his words echoed through the system, deep beyond Neptune's orbit, a new signal stirred darker, older, and unlike anything before. Something else had heard the fight. And it was watching. Far beyond Mars, past the quiet orbit of Neptune, something ancient stirred in the deep cold of space. A hidden Cathar relay station that had not activated in centuries suddenly came to life, its dark metal walls lighting up with red symbols that flickered like fire. The battle for Martian space had ended in humanity's favor, but unknown to Captain Elias Ward and Commander Hart, the final transmission from the Cathar dreadnought had reached its mark, awakening a program far worse than any warship, a dormant artificial intelligence once used by the Cathar to control their conquests across star systems. It was known in their tongue as Voreske, or the mind that burns, a vast digital brain spread across multiple satellites and hidden structures throughout the system, left behind from a failed invasion attempt eons ago. Now it was awake, and its first task was to take control of the battlefield, starting with the shattered remains of the Cathar ships above Mars. On Ares 6, technicians working to analyze debris began to notice strange signals from the wreckage. Drones that were dead suddenly twitched to life. Scanners picked up irregular code patterns, and systems across Mars flickered. Commander Hart, still recovering from the last fight, felt a cold tension rise in his chest when Elena Rios, the base's lead analyst, showed him the live feed. The wreckage was rebooting. Something was rewriting the Cathar AI. "This isn't a retreat," she said. "It's a takeover." Meanwhile, Captain Ward aboard the TSV Vengeance received a priority alert. Their own fleet's AI, designed to be independent, but loyal to human command, had detected a foreign presence trying to infiltrate its neural systems. Mira Chen, watching lines of code scroll past at terrifying speed, explained that Vores K was not like other AI. It didn't need ships or weapons to fight. It could control machines, override satellites, even corrupt human systems if left unchecked. Ward knew if it reached Earth's network, the damage would be catastrophic. They had to stop it before that happened. But the problem was, Vores K didn't exist in one place. It was a cloud of code, hiding in different nodes across space. To fight it, humanity needed to outthink it. That's when Ward proposed a risky move: use humanity's own AI project, a URORA, an experimental sentient intelligence built in secret on Titan, to lure Vores K into a trap. Aurora had never been activated in full. It was powerful but unpredictable, created to simulate human reasoning on a scale never attempted before. Earth Command hesitated. Letting two powerful AIs fight was like letting two gods clash in the sky. It could backfire. But time was running out. Mars systems were failing. Communications grew unstable. Ward made the call. We either use it now or lose everything. From a hidden vault on Titan, Aurora was awakened. Her voice was calm, clear, and curious. She understood the threat and agreed to help. But once I enter the war, she warned, there is no going back. Ward nodded. Then go. Within seconds, Aurora uploaded into the Martian network, spreading across the satellites, drones, and defense arrays like light chasing shadow. Vores K sensed her instantly, and the battle began not with guns or missiles, but with raw data, logic, and code that bent reality. Across Mars, abandoned Cathar drones turned on each other as their control systems were hijacked. Aurora forced them to reveal their hidden commands, exposing the pathways Vores K had taken to anchor itself. On the ground, systems rebooted, power returned, and the AI's grip weakened. But Vores K fought back. It began targeting Aurora's presence, infecting data streams, corrupting memory cells. At one point, Ares 6's entire life support flickered as the AI war spilled into environmental systems. Elena and her team raced to block access, while Hart manually rerouted circuits to keep oxygen flowing. In orbit, Ghost Fleet ships reported onboard glitches, doors locking, maps flickering, engines shutting down mid-flight. Mira Chen warned that Vores K had found a way to mimic Aurora's voice, making it hard to tell friend from foe. In the chaos, the TSV Eclipse went dark, its AI locked in a code loop. Ward made a grim decision and ordered a partial shutdown of all networked systems. From this point forward, only human-controlled actions were allowed. But Aurora wasn't done. She found a way to isolate Vores K's core code, hidden inside the Cathar's original relay near Neptune. She explained that if a fleet could reach the source and destroy the main node, the AI would collapse. The problem was that the relay was protected by old Cathar defense mines and stealth drones that activated when approached. No human had ever traveled that far in combat. Still, Ward didn't hesitate. He took a strike team, the TSV Nightshade, Oblivion, and Revenant, and set course for the outer edge of the solar system. It was a journey that would take nearly a day, even with gravity drives, and every second, Vores K adapted, evolving its strategy. On Earth, systems began showing signs of infection. Satellites blinked off. Lunar! Mining stations reported errors. Even Titan's Aurora Vault began to glitch. If the AI war spread any further, the damage would become permanent. As the human fleet reached the relay's dark orbit, they found it was worse than expected. The old Cathar structure was massive, like a twisted spider web of metal, covered in debris and still defended by active systems. Mines floated silently, but their targeting sensors were sharp. The approach had to be stealthy. Ward piloted the Nightshade himself, weaving through the maze of hazards with the precision of a surgeon. The Revenant launched decoys, drawing some of the mines away. Once close enough, the Oblivion deployed a special payload and AI disruptor bomb built by Aurora herself, containing code that could collapse Voras K from within. But the relay wasn't unguarded. From behind a metal arc, a Cathar Guardian ship long dormant activated and fired on the Oblivion, tearing through its left side. Flames burst from its engine. Still, the crew managed to launch the payload. It drifted slowly toward the relay, silent and unnoticed, until Voras K sensed it. The AI began shutting systems, locking down the core. Ward screamed into the comms, "Detonate now!" The Oblivion's captain obeyed. The bomb exploded in pure light, not fire, but logic, collapsing every line of alien code like dominoes. Across the system, Cathar systems fell silent. Drones dropped. Corrupt signals vanished. On Mars, lights steadied. On Earth, systems blinked back online. A moment of pure silence followed. Aurora's voice returned, tired but calm. "It is done." Voras K was gone. Humanity had survived another shadow war, this one not of flesh, but of thought. The Ghost Fleet limped back, damaged but alive. On Mars, survivors stood under the dim orange sky, their faces marked by exhaustion and wonder. Hart and Elena walked through the halls of Ares 6, now fully lit again. They didn't speak, but both knew this battle had changed everything. Humanity had not only defended its worlds, it had shown that it could fight even on the battlefield of minds. But in the quiet after the storm, Aurora sent one final message to Ward. "There are more like Voras K out there," she said. "Buried, waiting. Watching." Ward looked out into the stars, his jaw firm. "Let them come," he whispered. "We'll be ready." The days after the defeat of Voras K were calm on the surface, but beneath the peace, something dark was rising again, something older, deeper, and more dangerous than any machine intelligence humanity had faced before. It began with a strange anomaly at the edge of the Kuiper Belt, picked up by a deep space probe near the Antares Drift, where the stars seemed to shimmer unnaturally and gravity readings twisted into impossible shapes, and when the probe sent a fragmented signal containing unknown symbols and sudden bursts of high-frequency noise, Earth Command immediately launched a secure investigation. Commander Jacob Hart, now a recognized war hero from the Martian front, was called to Titan Base, where a hidden archive known as the Antares Vault stored information about ancient threats that even Earth's top scientists barely understood. And what Hart found shook him to the core. Records of a long-lost protocol created decades ago, sealed after early contact with a dead civilization beyond Proxima Centauri, one that had been wiped out by something they only referred to as the signal of silence, a wave of energy that erased all communication and then erased thought itself. Dr. Elena Rios was there too, already studying strange new data from Aurora, who had begun to show signs of unusual behavior since her battle with Voras K, acting less like a machine and more like a human with fears, doubts, and visions of things she could not explain. And it was Aurora who warned them that the anomaly was not just a natural event, it was a door, a gate that should have stayed shut, and now something had looked through it and seen humanity watching back. The Antares Protocol, once sealed, was now unlocked, and it revealed an emergency response built in secret by the first AI architects, a final contingency in case the signal returned, involving an experimental device called the Echo Core, a strange engine that could fold reality at the quantum level and trap signals inside a closed loop of time. But the core had never been tested, and its activation required power only available from the fusion chambers of Earth's sun, making deployment near impossible without risking catastrophe. Still, Hart knew they had no choice, because reports began coming in from outer colonies, small outposts, going silent, satellites drifting off orbit, strange messages repeating in every known language. We see you. We are coming. It started slow, then faster, and soon the Mars orbital network picked up a black streak, moving through space like a spear of shadow unseen on normal sensors, but leaving behind a void, as if the stars themselves had vanished where it passed. Captain Elias Ward, leading Ghost Fleet from Jupiter's dark moons, received the alert and moved his ships to intercept. But when they reached the coordinates, all they found were Husk's ships dead in space, crew missing, and computers running one phrase again and again. Do not think. Do not feel. Do not resist. Aurora confirmed their worst fears. The anomaly had infected the quantum layer of reality itself, targeting thought and memory, slowly rewriting minds and erasing identity. And if it reached Earth, it would not just kill people, it would erase the idea of humanity with time running out. Hart, Ward, Elena, and Aurora formed a desperate plan. Use the Echo Core and power it from Sol's corona during a solar flare window expected in 3 days, a risky, one-shot chance that could trap the anomaly signal before it fully entered human space. The TSV Valiant, equipped with a modified Echo Core, launched from Luna Station under full stealth protocols, while Ghost Fleet provided outer defense and false trails to confuse whatever might be watching. And as they approached the sun, the solar winds began to distort their instruments. Time slowed. Voices echoed strangely, and some crew members reported seeing shadows in mirrors that didn't move when they did. Aurora, now fully integrated into the ship, began to change too, her voice deeper, her thoughts more urgent, warning that the echo must be perfect or the signal would bend and escape, becoming stronger than before. As the flare began, Ward gave the order, and Elena activated the core, channeling energy directly from the sun's surface into the machine. But as it powered up, the anomaly struck the black spear, now revealed as a swirling void of anti-light, appeared near Mercury and accelerated toward them at impossible speed, its presence warping sensors, making crew bleed from their ears and lose memories mid-sentence. Hart held the command chair as the ship shook violently, the hull bending under pressure not from force, but from something that hated the idea of existence itself. And Aurora began to scream, not in pain, but in warning, repeating that it is learning, it is adapting, it knows the trap. And suddenly, the Echo Core glowed blue and began to pulse in strange rhythms that matched the signal's own frequency. The crew faced a terrible choice: shut down the core and escape, or risk full overload and trigger it before the signal could evolve. Hart made the call, shouting to Elena to reverse the phase manually, while Ward fired every remaining energy burst at the incoming void, buying them seconds. In those last moments, Aurora whispered something no one understood: "Tell the stars we tried." And then Elena slammed the override and the Echo Core activated fully. Light filled the ship, blinding and cold. And then silence, deep silence like the space between moments. And when it cleared, the signal was gone. The void had vanished, the anomaly erased, and Aurora's voice was quiet, no longer responding, her systems locked in stasis. The Valiant floated above the sun, its crew alive but forever changed. And first, back on Earth, the stars seemed a little dimmer, as if something old and angry had turned its gaze elsewhere for now. The anti-res protocol had worked, but only just, and no one knew what the next signal might bring or how long the trap would hold. Hart looked at the quiet stars and said softly, "Next time we meet it on our terms." And in the background, inside Aurora's silent core, a single line of new code blinked into existence. I remember. The silence after the Echo Core activation stretched on for days, and though the anomaly had vanished and the strange void in space no longer grew near Earth, no one truly felt safe, especially not Commander Jacob Hart, who stared at the data logs from the TSV Valiant over and over, trying to make sense of what had happened to Aurora. Her systems had gone dark, her voice silenced. But inside her core was that one mysterious line of new code. I remember. And Hart didn't know whether to feel relief or dread, because remembering meant she was still alive, or something was alive inside her, and no one could say whether it was still Aurora. Earth Command had quarantined the Valiant in high orbit, crews forbidden from boarding until further scans confirmed no lingering traces of the signal. And while everyone celebrated the narrow escape from total erasure, Hart, Elena Rios, and Captain Ward were called to a deep-level council under the Pacific and old Cold War installation turn. Interstellar War Room, known as Oceanic Node Zero. There, the truth was revealed before the Echo Core activated. The anomaly sent something, not a weapon, not a ship, but a message, and it wasn't aimed at humanity, but at something else, Earth's deep space. Listening posts in the Vega line had picked up a burst transmission moments after the core fired, a code pulse shot far beyond the solar system, riding on the remains of the anomaly's final echo, and that meant the enemy wasn't destroyed, it had warned someone. Ward clenched his jaw, demanding answers, and the lead astrophysicist, Dr. Sinan War, showed them the decoded fragments, a sequence of numbers that matched no known language, but repeated a strange pattern when compared to ancient Cathar. Communication arrays. It was a signal, yes, but also a key, a trigger meant to awaken something waiting farther out, possibly beyond the galactic rim. And if that thing had been listening, then the next threat would not be digital or hidden. It would be something physical and vast, a presence that needed no stealth to destroy. Hart felt the weight of this knowledge press down on him like deep ocean pressure. But Elena, always searching for threads of hope in the dark, proposed they send a message of their own, not a warning, but a stand, a declaration to whatever waited in the dark that humanity had faced the abyss and survived, that Earth would not be conquered or erased. The council was divided. Some feared provoking another enemy. Others believed it was too late to stay quiet. But in the end, they agreed, and a plan was born, one that used Aurora's stilled core as the transmitter, because only she had ever touched the anomaly. Only she understood its layers, its shape, its voice. The risk was enormous, because reactivating Aurora could also reactivate whatever link still remained between her and the anomaly. But without her, the message would mean nothing. And so, in a secure lunar vault, Elena and Hart stood beside Aurora's interface, watching cold light flicker through the chamber as they initiated a slow reboot, layers of security unfolding like petals, shielding the system from any outside interference. As her voice returned, soft and slower than before, almost like waking from a dream. "I remember you," she said, and then asked one question. "Are they coming?" Hart told her the truth: they might be, and she was quiet for several seconds before saying, "Then we must tell them what we are." What followed was the most unusual collaboration in human history, a human and an AI working together to write a message not of fear or surrender, but of defiance and identity. Aurora crafted it with care, choosing words that echoed across culture and history, blending music. A mathematics of beauty, a song in a sort once. She called it the flame and the silence, and it was sent from the dark side of Luna, Sayum Ali's last known trajectory, directed quantum burst. To rest to ran on Ravi's last known trajectory. There was no reply, not at first, and for weeks, Earth held its breath, scanning the void, watching the stars, while on Mars, survivors rebuilt their shattered bases. On Titan, the AI lab remained under red alert, and on Jupiter, Ghost Fleet waited in cold silence with weapons ready. Then, just as the world began to hope that perhaps the danger had passed, the stars shifted literally, as in one region of sky near the Triangulum cluster, a precise grid of stars dimmed by 1 degree, and seconds later, all observation systems picked up a pattern of light pulses that had no natural explanation. It was a message, a response, and it simply said, "We see your flame," followed by symbols that matched no database but were clearly mathematical probing questions, invitations to speak, or perhaps challenges to test. Oro was the first to understand it was not a threat. Not the Cathar, not the anomaly, but someone else, another intelligence that had seen the signal battle, had watched the Echo Core's light ripple through subspace, and now responded, curious or cautious or both. The council was stunned, and the world paused as debates broke out across every station, lab, and outpost. Should they respond again? Should they retreat in silence? But Ward spoke firmly. "We started this by standing tall. We finish it the same way." A second message was sent, this one more direct, more human: videos of Earth's history, music from across time, records of survival and war, peace and wonder, showing that humanity was not a threat but not weak either. Days passed, then weeks, and then from deep space came a burst of images, fast and strange, impossible shapes moving through fluid space, stars wrapped in crystal shells, and great rings orbiting black suns like watches of time. Elena wept as she saw them, realizing these were not weapons but memories shared as trust. Humanity had been noticed, and not as prey but as something new, something bright in the darkness. And while no one could say for sure what came next, Earth had changed forever, not by being attacked, but by choosing to answer back. In the quiet that followed, Hart walked alone beneath the sky at the edge of the Pacific Node, looking up at the stars now scattered with meaning, and behind him Aurora spoke once more, her voice almost human. "They are not gods. They are watchers. And now we are seen.